Welcome back. Joining us now are two top former Clinton administration officials, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and National Security Advisor Sandy Berger. Thanks for being with us. Madam Secretary, it's now 2 weeks or several weeks after the discredited Iranian elections. There's still a lot of turmoil and uncertainty. What is the most probable outcome, do you think, over the next several months?
I think it's, again, one of the more complicated and hard to predict. At the moment, it certainly looks as though the regime will regain control. They are being totally brutal. I'm listening to the stories. And on the other hand, I think that demonstrations will continue. What is really interesting to think about is whether this changes Iran in the long run. And there are those who believe that Iran will never be the same after this. But I think it is very hard to see the exact trajectory at the moment.
Sandy Berger, what do you think it'll look like in 3 or 4 months?
I think hard to know exactly what it'll look like, but I agree with Secretary Albright that we're not going back to the status quo. The veil of legitimacy has been stripped away from this government. What it portrayed itself as a theocracy with democratic aspects is now a police state. And it's a watershed event. The opposition obviously has been driven to ground, but the resentments are going to simmer, and we'll have to see whether they can regroup in a way that continues to sustain a movement against the regime.
If Ahmadinejad and the Ayatollahs do, however, through repression retain power, whatever the merits of engaging with Iran because they pose threats, isn't it going to be very hard politically for the Obama administration to sit down and talk to these?
I think it's very difficult under present circumstances, but let's be clear. We have a long-term strategic interest in stopping Iran's nuclear program. Even as the protesters are marching, the nuclear program proceeds. The centrifuges are spinning.
So still sit down and talk to them?
I think we leave the door open, and it's up to them at this point. And if the situation evolves in a way in which we can engage with them, we should be open to that, but under these circumstances, I don't think we can.
Madam Secretary, what effect does it have on other players in the region?
Well, again, this is one of these very difficult situations. I had believed, and I think that Iran gained a great deal out of the war in Iraq. They were inching their way to becoming the major regional power. They, after all, are Persia. The question is what the effect of all this is in terms of their relationship with Hezbollah, Hamas, whom they support, and generally whether their organizational system is capable of carrying on a foreign policy while all this is going on. I do think that we need to keep in mind our national interest, to go back to the previous question, which is we are concerned about Iran becoming a nuclear power. We have said, and President Obama said, is that you deal with countries because you have problems and issues. Clearly, at the moment, it is so disorganized and we can't do anything, but we can't forget what our national interests are and the fact that we dealt with some pretty bad people in order to get arms control agreements and various parts. So the hard part is to keep this separated, but Iran continues to be a major power.
Well, let's talk about the Israeli-Palestinian issue and how it affects that. As you know, the President and Secretary Clinton have said that they have to stop any growth in settlements. Netanyahu has said, no, we won't. Should the U.S. keep the pressure on and take any kind of action against the Israelis if they continue to take that position?
Well, President Obama's made his point, his view very clear, as has the Secretary. The U.S. wants there to be a secure Israel. We have an indissoluble relationship with them. We want to be a part of moving the negotiations forward, and we need to make sure that we're able to follow out on the two-state solution.
Sandy Berger, a lot of risk, though, in trying to take a strong, hard, rather bold stand for an administration in the beginning, isn't it?
I think it's a risk worth taking and it needs to be taken. I think there's an urgency to the peace process. There are things happening on the ground with respect to the development of settlements on the one hand, with the development of Hamas on the other hand, which means that the door and the window to a two-state solution is closing. The United States has traditionally played the role of honest broker. What this administration seems to be seeking to do is to elicit from both sides steps that can create a virtuous cycle. From the Israeli side, settlement freeze; from the Arab side, movement toward normalization, which can create a momentum that restarts the peace process.
Let me ask you just both one question about North Korea. Kim Jong-il, is he still in charge? And do you have any sense of what the succession will be? Sandy, I'll start with you, and then I'll come to you, Madam Secretary, because you've actually met him.
I don't think we know for sure. He seems to be trying to devolve power to his 26-year-old son. It's obviously, in the midst of this succession, a time of great unpredictability and danger with respect to the North Koreans.
Well, I don't think we know. What I think is interesting is that I believe that a lot of this has to do with the succession process, that despite the fact that Kim Jong-il is the dictator, he does have to develop whatever relationships there are with the military, and I think this is clearly a part of it. His son, they have just made him head of their spy agency, so that will put him in a position of knowing who the, quote, enemies are. I think it's dangerous. We, American ships, and I must say, parenthetically, a ship that I christened, the USS McCampbell, is out there tailing a North Korean ship, trying to figure out what it is doing, and so I think it is dangerous.
Final question. You hosted an exceptional dinner recently for former Secretaries of State. The guest of honor was the current Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Tell us what the headline was out of that. And did you talk about all those special envoys she has? Richard Holbrooke, George Mitchell.
You know, I mean, the headline really was that this is a very special group of people, all of whom have sat in the chair of Secretary of State, and that there was no kind of bickering or second-guessing or anything like that. A very kind of, we want to help, you've got a great job, we loved the job when we had it, and just a great sense. We did talk about all the issues, which was really terrific, and I loved having them at my dinner table.
Well, both of you, Sandy Berger, Albright, Stonebridge, congratulations to both of you. We look forward to you both being back here often together and individually.
Thank you, Al.